What is going on YouTube? Today we are going for a rather controversial platinum trophy, and that is for Star Wars Outlaws, especially since we can now actually achieve it. This game, like anything Ubisoft, was met with immediate hate, mainly stemming from typical Ubisoft gripes of an overpaid and underpolished game. However, most of the hate actually stems from people thinking the main character Kay is ugly.
What?
Now, I'm not saying the game is perfect or incredible, but I don't think it really deserves all of the hate that it's getting. It really is not that bad if you like the typical Ubisoft open world formula and laugh at glitches. Anyway, the game has a total of 49 trophies to earn the platinum and took me 40 hours to complete. I also got a puppy recently, which is going great. He definitely is not interrupting my editing and gaming at all. If you enjoy this video, please do drop a like and comment what games you want to see. Also, if you're interested in more platinum trophy content, then drop a sub, as it really helps a small fish like me. Now, let's jump into Kay's journey, where her hands are rated E for Empire, but she also pulls off heists against syndicates for the ultimate score. The game kicks off with an introduction to most of the syndicates in the game having a meeting. We have the Pike, the Hutts, and the Crimson Dawn meeting with the new up-and-coming syndicate called Zerek Besh. Solero leads this new syndicate and decides to send all of the leaders at the dinner back to the main menu. In the next cutscene, we are then introduced to Kay and her pet called Nyx, who are bing chilling at home. We are staying above a bar and the owner is called Bram, who we are also introduced to, and we then head out to the streets of Kanto, where we not only got a good sniff of this random gentleman, but we were able to net ourselves a trophy by complete accident for winning a bet on a fixed race. Now we get introduced to a bunch of the mechanics of the game, like lockpicking and commanding Nyx to do things like steal things or distract people. Our first mini heist involves breaking into this club for a key card, where we get to have a go at the stealth and sneak our way into the office.
Oh, okay, goddamn.
We of course make it to the office and loot the key card we need, but we get caught while doing so and enter our first shootout, where I thought the gunplay actually felt great. This mini shootout of course sent the place into high alert, and we then have to escape across the rooftops. After a bit of parkour, we run back home and hide upstairs as we watch some guards shoot Bram in the leg for covering for us. Bram surprisingly didn't care about that and told us to go and complete the job. So we go and meet up with the contact and his crew to start our first big heist. This heist turns out to be against the new syndicate, Zerek Besh, and we are going after Solero's vault. First things first was to of course sneak into the compound, which involved a little bit of rock climbing and parkour. We then fight our way towards the vault, taking out a few guards, and after slicing the terminal we enter the room. It was here that Kay realised that we were being misled, as there was no score and it was just this dude called Asara. By the time we realise what is going on, they hit us with a stun shot, knocking us out to take the fall for the heist. We were then woken up by Solero and two of his goons, and he wanted to have a little chat. It was not looking good for us, however Nyx comes in clutch and at the last minute attacks Solero, and we use this as a chance to make our escape. This of course meant we had to shoot our way out, and we eventually make it out to this hangar, which of course was filled with guards. We can either sneak or shoot our way through the hangar to make it to the ship on the other end. I of course chose to shoot and run, and when we make it to the ship we of course steal it and then use it to make our escape. However, during our escape the ship does get a little bit damaged and we are forced to crash land it on this planet called Tashara. After our perfect parking, we are then introduced to a mechanic called Waka who saw us go down, and we are immediately attacked. It was here that we were introduced to your adrenaline ability, which is basically Deadeye, and it is actually pretty cool. After all of that, we were then able to recover our very own speeder and net ourselves our first story-based trophy. While out learning the speeder, we managed to hit this sick jump for the Like a Bantha trophy too.
Like a bantha. Yes?
Our objective was to travel into the main city and locate the cantina to try and pick up some work. I have to say, all of the cities in this game are amazingly done and feel incredibly full of life. They did a really good job with the world designs in my opinion. Anyway, while at the cantina we managed to get into and interrupt this meeting with the Pikes, and Nyx steals the leader's ring. As soon as we were thrown out, we get introduced to Danka, who will be our first contractor and offers us a job. It was to infiltrate the Pike leader Gorak's base, yeah, the dude that just threw us out, so we were game. This started off amazingly as we managed to sneak our way into the office and access the terminal for the data we need. Just like last time, we trigger an alarm and we then enter our next shootout and have to escape by using the cliffs. Once we make it back to the cantina, we hand over the data to get paid, but Danka also introduces us to the Crimson Dawn Syndicate. Now, with the world mostly opened up to us, I thought it was best to go through some of the side content and get ourselves leveled up a bit. Since we got intel on a vault of goodies in a Pike base, we decided to head over to it and sneak in. The intel mentioned a keycard we needed to access it, and once we picked up the keycard, we net ourselves a trophy for completing our first intel chain. We then went to a different base and infiltrated it, not to only steal everything from the vault, but also to blow up this generator. After our close call and nearly getting cooked like a well done steak, we then head back to Waka at the ship and ask him what we need to get it working again. This led us all over, and we done things like steal packages from the Empire, who all just stood in place for some reason. We also met a speeder mechanic who helped us out, and we were then only left with one more item for the ship. This conveniently is stored in an old abandoned Empire base, but the good news is it won't cost us anything at least. While in here, we were able to get ourselves a trophy for picking our 20th lock with the data spike. It doesn't take us long to locate the part we needed, and then the facility shuts down, making it easier to get out. Before we returned the parts to Waka, we had a few more things pop up, so I thought I would go and do those quickly. We did also break the game during fast travel, which led to this mess. First off was this weird quick time event for eating. It doesn't make sense and it is really boring, but we do need to do 4 of these across each of the planets for a trophy. Speaking of trophies, we did get one for going to a syndicate vendor and buying something out of their VIP stock. We then went and done a couple more missions, which included a couple of shootouts here and there, but there was this mission here where we had to sneak into an Empire facility for some data and parts. In here we got another trophy for disabling an alarm that has already been activated. After that we went back to Waka and installed everything onto our ship called the Trailblazer. Once we had everything installed and it was time to take it for a test run, what better way to do that than to do a quick space heist for the Crimson Dawn. We were asked to sneak onto an Empire base and wipe away their debts while framing the Pikes. First off, we get a little taster of the flying controls and combat by retrieving some cargo. Then we took the cargo to the Empire and Waka used it as a chance to get us aboard the base. What was great was sneaking around the base like they do in the movies using the cargo lifts and distractions. This mission, I would say, is our first true test of stealth, as we had to use a variety of different strategies to sneak into this room. While accessing the terminal that we needed, we are introduced to this hideous thing called Bosnok, who is essentially their digital bookkeeper. He agrees to help us wipe the Crimson Dawn depths and frame the Pikes, but we were asked if we wanted to help the Pikes instead, which we refused.
Really diplomacy at its finest.
In return, we now had to help this floating head thing escape the facility. This for the most part was a lot more sneaking around, as we plonked Bosnok on this cargo lift and hid behind it. It was going great as we were able to remain undetected and sneak our way basically back to the main hangar. Unfortunately, we ended up getting in a big shootout in the hangar before we were able to get ourselves and Bosnok aboard the Trailblazer. We quickly flew out of the base, and after a little space battle, we then headed back to Tashara to get paid. Oh, and we also managed to get a trophy for getting the lowest possible rep with a syndicate. In our case, this was the Pikes. With the test run now complete, we headed back into Tashara to get parts for a hyperdrive. However, before we do that, we went and played our first game of Sabacc, which did not take that long to understand and I surprisingly enjoyed playing. But we do need to play a lot of Sabacc for a chance at a trophy later on. Now, let's get to our shopping list from Waka so we can get the hyperdrive sorted. The first part we needed was conveniently inside another Empire base, and after a bit of sneaking around, we quickly stole ourselves a power core. The last thing that we needed was a nav computer, and luckily for this one, there was an abandoned cruiser which has a good chance of having one left. Unfortunately, once we do retrieve it, Waka decides to pull a blaster on us. This was genuinely unexpected, but what was even more unexpected was this bounty hunter called Vale endgaming Waka before we got a chance to do it to us. While being held at gunpoint, we decide to initiate some form of self-destruct from the terminal, which gives us a chance to run. We gave it a damn good attempt, but the bounty hunter caught up to us and had us cornered. It was then that we met this old battle droid called ND5, who proceeds to save the day by opening the door and yeeting Vale across the hallway. We then were told to run back to the ship by ND5, and when we make it back we find another stranger here just chilling. ND5 immediately disarms us and we are introduced to Jalen, who has come to recruit us for a massive heist. He wants us to go back to Celero's vault, but this time we actually do rob it and don't get betrayed. Let's just say our half failure has inspired him and we are then tasked with forming a team. After we agree, we unlock our next story trophy. We then install the missing components and can now use the hyperdrive, unlocking the other planets. You don't have to go in any particular order, but ND5 does suggest one which we followed. The first planet we went to was Kajimi, and we got to meet this new unique clan to this game called the Ashiga clan. This is quite a confined planet with no access to the speeder, as it is literally just one kind of small city.
Bruh.
Jalen has given us names of people to find, and Ankh is the first one for the team. So we of course start by asking around at the cantina. Turns out Ankh has some trouble with the Ashiga clan, so we need to get an audience with the Queen. In our big brain wisdom, we break into their compound where we get a trophy for slicing our 10th terminal. But the reason we are here is to steal a relic from them and to give it back to the Queen. While in this compound, we get another trophy for slicing our 20th terminal as well. Then we yoinked this weird space stone thing and legged it to the Queen. Somehow our plan worked and she wanted to see us right away. After a brief chat, we got some information on Ankh and a promise to let her go after she has served her sentence, as she has been a bit of a menace.
Naughty, naughty.
Back at the ship, we unlock an amazing side story chain with Jet Cordo and his holo trackers. We then meet up with the Crimson Dawn to arrange a prison break for Ankh, as it turns out the Queen has no intentions of letting her go. So we headed over to the facility and had to sneak around trying to locate where Ankh is being held. This of course meant a mix of parkour and throwing hands, but we do eventually find her. Ankh is an explosives expert, so it does not take her long to trigger all of the alarms and we have to start blasting. Overall, this section was great fun as we cleared different rooms of enemies and made our way to the exit with Ankh in tow. Next up, we took to space to complete a couple more contracts and managed to bag ourselves 2 trophies. One was for somehow killing an enemy ship without turrets or missiles. No clue how I got it here. The next one was for reaching the maximum reputation with the Ashiga clan. Back on the planet, we then have to help Ankh with one last thing before she departs on our ship. I honestly can't remember what it was that she wanted us to do, but we broke into another Ashiga clan facility. We also got stuck here for an embarrassingly long amount of time, but we're not going to talk about that. In the end though, we place one of Ankh's bombs, give this poor dude a knuckle sandwich, and then storm the facility. We had to blast our way through quite a few different rooms, which is always a bit of fun, but in the end we make it to the Queen's throne room. It was here that we get to see the Queen and her daughter, I think it was, have an argument, and then her daughter sends her mum to the Shadow Realm. In the next cutscene, we get Ankh and our next story-based trophy for finishing all of this planet's missions, followed by being told to leave the planet, which I think is fair enough. Anyway, with Ankh recruited, we decided to head off to the next planet called Akiva. Like all other planets, once we landed we headed to the cantina to get some information on our next recruit. His name is Gadik and he is a droid specialist. We are pointed in the direction of this dude called Surat, who trades us Gadik's location. Turns out he is in an Imperial base being held prisoner to build enhanced Viper droids. So Kay makes our way over to the base and we decide to go kinda loud when taking out this checkpoint just outside. Then we manage to find a vent to use and sneak our way into the base. It did not take us long to get into the base itself and then also locate Gadik. We were then met with a blaster shot from his droid, but after a chit chat he realises who we are from the Kanto job. Now the fun part starts, and that is to shoot our way out of the base. I did also die here because I thought Kay could swim. Turns out I was wrong. But we do make it out of the base correctly on the second go, and then immediately die thinking that my speeder that hovers could go over water.
You stupid!
Back at the ship, we were able to use the resources I had been gathering to max level a blaster configuration for a trophy. With our upgrades, we went and saved a speeder mechanic who can help us upgrade our speeder to go over water. He does hook us up and we put it to the test by going over to this lake to retrieve a couple of bits for the mechanic. After delivering everything back at the main city, we then take Nyx to do this planet's annoying quick time eating event. We then went round and started completing some side stuff for Kay to unlock upgrades. This involved all kinds of things like finding abandoned caches with key upgrades to attacking Empire bases. I say attacking, but it was more that I got discovered mid-contract, but we don't talk about that. The most noteworthy thing to happen on this planet though is an unexpected appearance from the legendary Lando Calrissian. He introduces us to some Sabacc based missions which we need to complete in order to get a chance to cheat against him in a game later on for a trophy. Going back to the main story, before Gadeek leaves with us, he wants us to help in destroying the Viper droids and plans that he has made. First of all, we got to see one in action as it attacks us at this crash site and we are forced to shoot it down. Then we come up with a plan to yet again break into an Empire facility and destroy the plans, but this time with the help of the rebels. It was basically more of the same formula that we have experienced. Sneak in, throw hands with a couple of people that we do encounter, locate the terminal that in this case Gadeek needs to access, and in doing so it triggers an alarm. Then we get to shoot our way out, which is the best part. For context on the weapons, you can only carry your pistol blaster, but you can pick up enemy weapons to use temporarily. During this shootout I was able to get a trophy for killing 20 enemies with weapons retrieved by Nyx. Anyway, Gadeek does sort out all of the Viper droids and the plans, however ND5 gets shot in the process, damaging him. We then make our way to the hangar with our new army of Viper droids and start a full-blown shootout. This was great fun, but once we clear the hangar, we hand the droids over to the rebels and in return we get our next story trophy for recruiting Gadeek. Danka ends up sending over some contracts, so we go back to Tashara to start doing them before our final planet, Tatooine. While here, we end up chatting to this dude at the bar and finding out after listening to him yap for ages that we get a trophy for putting up with it. Turns out, the contract that was sent by Danka was a wild goose chase and a bunch of people from the Pikes and the Crimson Dawn turn up for a shootout. We also got some heartfelt comments from ND5 after that close call.
If you died, Jalen would be mad.
Next on our to-do list was of course confront Danka, and we catch her chatting with an ISB agent, which really stirs the pot. Nothing comes from our little confrontation and we tell the ISB agent that she looks like Jimmy Carr and dip. She did not take our insult well and sent some of the Empire to chase us down. We then carried on with some contracts to build some reputation and quickly unlocked the trophy for getting to the max rep with the Crimson Dawn. Next up, I thought I should start building up Pike rep as I completely butchered it earlier. Something that did help was I stockpiled as much Pike based contracts and missions before hitting the lowest rep so I could get to work recovering it. This mainly involved contracts, but they had a pretty notable side mission here where we had to go and retrieve a Pike traitor. We of course had a chance to let him go, but chose not to and blasted our way out. That mission and a few contracts were surprisingly enough to build max reputation with the Pike Syndicate for the trophy. After that, we decided to progress a couple of side stories that have trophies tied to them. They were for the most part detailed treasure hunts that you can tell were true fan projects, as there is a lot of references to Star Wars lore. One treasure hunt was from Jet Cordo, which we mentioned a little bit earlier, but the other was from an old damaged droid called MT7. Before we can go on this treasure hunt, we had to help him complete his mission, which involved following the beeping tracker to some data pads. Then we went into space and retrieved a few goodies alongside sending out a transmission for MT7. On our return, ND5 takes over and tells him his mission is complete, and we then unlock our new treasure hunt based in space. Another mission that we quickly done was for Lando, which involved fighting the Empire alongside some rebels, which was actually kind of fun. Anyway, I think it's about time we get back to the story and progress to the last planet of Tatooine. Coming out of hyperspace, we were welcomed by a massive space battle which we thought we needed to get involved in. Mistakes were made though, and we promptly ran to the planet. We ended up landing in this small town that seems completely abandoned apart from this single sheriff, which is always a good sign, right? Turns out the town is being attacked by the Hutt cartel, and it did not take long for this sheriff to show off her blaster skills. Knowing that she is not someone to be messed with, we decided to cut straight to asking for information on our next recruit called Hoss. He has been a very naughty boy and has been robbing almost everyone. At the moment, he is being held prisoner by the Tuskens, so we have to go and explore a little bit of the desert until we find their camp. When we get there, we come to an agreement where they let Hoss go, but we need to retrieve a Dragon Pearl. Turns out we were not the only ones that were after this pearl, as there was a small group at the site which we of course had to throw hands with. We locate the pearl and then return to the Tuscans to get Hoss and head back to the ship. He said he was game at first because he knew Jalen, so he was just going to go and grab a few bits and would meet us back at the ship.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
Turns out he was lying and went to the local cantina to get drunk and lose a lot of money. He then decides to bet Nix, and when we confront him we get knocked out before we could do anything. We were left in the bar and Nix was taken away to be given to Jabba as an offering since he collects exotic animals. Kay then goes on a bit of a mad one for a bit, pulling a gun on Hoss and finding out where they took Nix. We then make our way to Jabba's palace, and this started off by parkouring around the cliffs to locate a back entrance ND5 recalled from a previous encounter. After we make it round the cliffs, we then get to sneaking through Jabba's palace and slowly take down his security. It does not take us too long to find where Nix is being kept, and we then set him free. Unfortunately, it turns out this was all one big trap, as we are then ambushed by more of Jabba's security. We then also find out that Hoss told Jabba that we were on the way in hopes that his bounty could be wiped. Also, the Zerek Besh bounty hunter from earlier is here too for some reason. In true Jabba fashion, he activates his trapdoor and all three of us fall below. We were all then ambushed by these dog things and we get to watch Hoss get eaten, which was amazing. Good riddance to him. Kay and Vel the bounty hunter decide to form a truce while we get out of Jabba's palace, which of course meant a lot more fighting. But most importantly, we get to fight Jabba's Rancor in a rather underwhelming boss fight, honestly. Although it was cool he was here, it was a shame that all we did was shoot an explosive barrel to wind him up and make him run into the door. Doing this a couple of times breaks the door enough for us to escape, and of course we are then welcomed by Jabba's security. We were then taken back to Jabba to have a chat about a job he wants us to do, but he also gives us our next story trophy. Since we were trying to gain rep for the Hutt cartel, we done Jabba's mission immediately. As you can expect, we can find information on the spy's location in an Empire base, so we meet up with Vale and break in. We head straight for the terminal to get the data, when while retrieving it we watched Vale on the CCTV endgame this random dude. Since she literally got caught in 4K and it wasn't even subtle, the entire base goes into lockdown and we have to make a quick escape. Once we make it out to our speeders, we were then chased across Tatooine, and I definitely did this part first time. It was actually quite fun, this speeder chase, but what was even better was an unexpected trophy for finding every location in the game. Using the data we got, we were able to get a location to check out for the spy, but it turns out to be another trap. We were then ambushed by waves and waves of the Empire, and it was not looking good for us.
Man team, yeah, it's not looking good, bruv.
Luckily though, just when it looked like we were done for, ND5 turns up in the Trailblazer and completely saves the day. Jabba then gives us a Discord call and says the spy has been dealt with and our job is complete, which makes literally no sense as we can get contracts from the spy very shortly. So he definitely has not been dealt with and we have not finished our job. However, we do settle our beef with the bounty hunter for now and get a trophy for completing all of the main missions on Tatooine. We then go back to the ship and it turns out ND5 is having a seizure due to the blaster shot he took a while ago, causing more damage than we noticed. The difficult bit is that replacement parts would be hard to come by due to how old he is. Yeah, this bit doesn't really make sense either, as I also know that there's a few droids in the MT7 questline that we could just go quickly salvage. Gadik of course points us in the right direction, but we decide to put him on hold for a few hours and work towards some trophies. We started off by grabbing a couple of the collectible bits that we needed, but one set that we can tick off is the annoying eating events. Kay and Nix enjoyed the final meal needed and we popped the most unnecessary trophy for doing so. Then we went and met some Jawas to help us get some upgrades for our ship, and they kitted us out with an auto turret. Before we go and get what they need, we were also able to knock out another trophy. For this one, we needed to get max wanted level with the Empire and get Death Troopers deployed to track us down. We then had to eliminate the squad and use their keycard to wipe our wanted level for the trophy. After that, we went back to the cantina for another trophy, as we needed to pickpocket someone in each cantina on every planet. Then I thought we should start knocking out some of the more character specific quests, as they often unlock upgrades. This was a lot of things like gunning down convoys all the way to basic rescue missions. While completing one of these missions, we were able to get a trophy for gunning down this Empire ship deployed at max wanted level in space. I then thought we should go and get the auto turret upgrade, so we need to go and get what the Jawas wanted. We had to locate this dead Sarlacc pit and retrieve a Sarlacc tooth. Kay then took the tooth back and exchanged it for the turret, and then we went on to complete the last major side mission. This is with the sheriff in the small town on the outskirts of Tatooine, and we have to help her defend it from the Hutt cartel attack. In return, she teaches us how to shoot more targets with our Deadeye ability, which is not only fun, but we need it for a couple of trophies later on. Speaking of trophies, we also get one for completing all of the expert quests in the game. With all the things that we have been doing, we are not far off getting max reputation with the Hutt Syndicate. So we went and picked up a few more contracts and went out completing them. In the end, we popped the trophy for getting to the max reputation with the Hutts. After that, we did hit up a couple of collectible bits that we needed, and then thought it was time to go and fix up ND5. This started with tracking down another droidsmith to help us source the parts we need to fix him. While trying to locate the parts, ND5 does go to sleep for a bit and Gadeek has to keep waking him up. In a bit of a twist, while looking for the part, the gang end up bumping into the dude that we rescued from the vault in the beginning called Asara. Kay of course was extremely hesitant, but he works for the rebels and everyone comes to a deal. He will help us get the parts we need to fix ND5, and in return we will help him rescue his team that have been captured. This seems like a fair deal, so we of course helped with rescuing his friends, but this led to a huge shootout. It was great fun fighting our way back out of the base, and I do really enjoy how the combat feels in this game at times. Anyway, we of course make it out, and surprisingly Asara held up his end of the deal and gave us the parts we needed to fix ND5. Once we got him fixed up, we head into the main part of the ship and we are greeted by Jalen. He has a few surprises for us. The first one is a new recruit. That is our mum, and there is some drama there as Mumsy done a runner when Kay was a kid, so this doesn't go over too well. Also, Asara is joining us as well for some reason. However, once that announcement was made, we do get our next story trophy. We are basically about to enter the point of no return, so I went round and decided to clean up the remaining trophies for a platinum pop at the end. The first one we done was to locate all of Jet Cordo's vaults, and after we disable the turret and loot the last one, we popped the trophy. Next up was to go around and complete any remaining Nyx treasures, which are the parkour challenges. We were surprisingly only missing a few, so it did not take us long to find the last one and get that trophy as well. Since we had been casually doing the Sabak missions, we were invited by Lando to play a game. For the trophy, we need to not only win against him, but we need to successfully cheat against him as well. We surprisingly managed to get this first try since we are true gamers, and popped the no such thing as luck trophy. After all those trophies, we decided to focus on some space related trophies. The first one we got was for defeating a ship after doing a loop maneuver. Next up, we went round to each of the orbit sections and collected all of the transmissions located in these green crates. Once we get them all, they lead us to a hidden vault with some legendary gear inside, but our focus is that juicy trophy. With that, we are now done with all of the collectible trophies. Thank God. While we were in space, I thought this would be a good time to go for another tricky trophy. You have to shoot down 10 ships while inside the nebula, which disables all targeting and limits visibility. After luring some pirates into the nebula and taking them out, we were able to net ourselves the trophy. We then go back to Tashara and go for a couple of miscellaneous trophies. The first one was for killing 5 people with Deadeye while on a speeder. The next trophy is actually kind of a tricky one, to be honest. You need to bribe an Imperial officer to clear a 5-star wanted level. What makes it so difficult is obtaining a 5-star wanted level and then not getting seen or chased while running back to the official. If you get seen or anything, you get a 6-star wanted level, leading to death troopers. After a fair few attempts, we were able to get to the official unnoticed and get that annoying trophy. I then realised that we hadn't upgraded our ship or speeder in a while, and after maxing them out and flying into space, we popped this trophy. The next trophy is an easy one, as we had to blind 30 enemies with Nyx. So we just sat in this bush and kept sending Nicks to repeatedly jump on them, which doesn't take long to give us the trophy. For the next trophy we had to defeat 20 enemies with fast talk, which is a move we didn't really use. When you get spotted you can fast talk, which will give you a few seconds to make a decision like gun them down or run. After repeatedly doing this to every enemy we crossed, it did not take us long to get that trophy out of the way. The next one is actually a tad difficult. We had to beat a high score on any arcade game. Some research showed this one was the easiest I think, but it still took a fair few attempts to get it. Eventually though, we were able to beat the high score for a trophy to add to the collection. I then took the speeder and decided to get a very easy one out of the way for drifting for 30 seconds. We literally just did donuts and then that trophy was ours. While we were on a planet, we also needed to kill 6 enemies with our enhanced deadshot that we have leveled up. It took a couple of tries, but we did eventually pop the trophy. It also turns out that we were not far off completing our 40th contract for another trophy. So we went and accepted some space contracts as they were the quickest ones to complete, and after a couple more we popped the honest work trophy. Then the last miscellaneous trophy we needed was to take on each Syndicate's capital ship without taking any hull damage. Basically meaning that you can't lose any of your shields in battle, and you have to also take out the smaller ships too, it seems. Since my ship was at max level, it honestly wasn't too bad. What is great is if the Pike and the Hut Syndicate ships spawn together, they start fighting each other and they don't target you. Just make sure that you get the last hits on the ships. If the ships aren't there, then go to the planet but don't land. It will spin you around and reset the encounters. Anyway, after we took each ship down, we popped the last trophy we needed. Now it is time to go back to the story and pull off this big heist against Solero. This is the point of no return, which we were obviously okay with. The first step was to get Solero's data card, which he is keeping in his main Empire base. This would give us access to his quarters and things in his base on Kanto. We start off by teaming up with Mumsy and going on a stolen cargo ship and sneaking out the hatch like before. As we were sneaking through the base, we of course had to be stealthy and not raise any alarms. However, we also got to eavesdrop on Solero and see that things are falling apart for him, and Vale the bounty hunter doesn't want to do the job anymore. We also find out Solero is an ISB agent and works for the Empire, which funds his syndicate. Kay also got a chance to see his boss, and this was definitely not expected. It turns out to be none other than Darth Vader, and he proceeds to embarrass Solero and then threaten him. This was like that thing Squidward done to Doctor Strange once. Pushing on, we of course make it to Solero's quarters and then download all the data that we need. We then have to make our way out of the base. Unfortunately, on our way out, Mumsy needed help, so we had to quickly dip into the security room to remotely help her through this terminal. We then climb around the struts of the base and eventually manage to just leg it back to the ship, which also pops our next story trophy. With the heist now in full swing, we then head back and meet up with the gang on Kanto and go over the plan. Then, when we're ready, we make our way to the cliffs. First off, we get a full-blown combat section at an external outpost for 2 reasons. The main reason is to draw security out, and the second reason is to gain access to the underground. When we make it into Solero's mansion, we of course have to be stealthy. It did not take us long to make our way to the vault, and it is safe to say everything is going to plan. The first layer of security is a droid that Gadeek hacks and gives us entry. Then the second wall for the main vault had to be blown up by Ankh. This of course dragged everyone to the vault for a shootout, which was great fun. It doesn't take long for Solero to rock up with Vale and we enter this cutscene. However, in a weird turn of events, Vale sends the security back to the main menu and then pops Solero one. She then lets us go and we make our escape with what was in the vault.
I love you, bitch.
Our escape involved going through the sewers to the casino, however they spotted our ship landing there and we were met with another gunfight. Kay and the gang had to fight their way through the casino, and this fight was actually kinda mid to be honest, but we do make it back to the ship and escape. It's here that the gang all get together and open up the case from the vault. Unfortunately, as expected, there was no credits and we were played again. The heist was for Solero's databank, which holds game-changing amounts of data on people and operations. Jalen wants to use it to take over the galaxy, and when this is revealed we enter a standoff. ND5 has a restraining bolt, so he is forced to do what Jalen says, and he stuns Asara that wanted it for the rebels. He then proceeds to stun us as well, as we didn't exactly take Jalen's plan too well. We do get a flashback while we were out cold, but when we wake up we get another trophy. Kay ended up being left on the Trailblazer in a pod, and fortunately Gadeek and Ankh have come to the rescue. It also turns out that we are on a Star Destroyer, which is not good. Since we're out of ideas, we decide to use one of the knocked out Stormtroopers' armour to sneak through the base. We were also able to sneak into Celero's security detail somehow and follow him into a meeting. He gets a Discord call from Darth Vader, and it turns out that he is done with Celero now. This meeting is also interrupted by Jalen, and it turns out that Darth Vader has given him Celero's position. We then get to watch them yap for a bit, but we learn that Jalen and Celero are brothers. ND5 then blasts Celero and he is sent to the Shadow Realm. Kay then decides to do a face reveal, and it doesn't have the impact that we were hoping for. We came back for Asara and ND5, but instead Jalen sends ND5 to hunt us down. This for the most part is a long chase sequence, which wasn't too bad. After we were chased round the ship, we charge up this reactor thing and try to zap ND5 in hopes of stunning him. When we zap him, it does actually work for about 5 seconds, as when we try to remove his restraining bolt, he snaps out of it and picks us up. However, Nyx is not far, and this little lifesaver manages to get us our blaster, and we simply blast his restraining bolt. It's a much more brutal way of doing it, and at first it shuts him down, which isn't good. Jalen then comes over with Asara at gunpoint and starts yapping, but ND5 wakes up. Luckily our blaster shot worked, and he then guns Jalen down in this cowboy quick draw style standoff. The entire ship then goes into high alert and stormtroopers start swarming our position. I enjoyed fighting our way back to the Trailblazer, and I really liked how many stormtroopers rocked up here. It felt like the base was literally on high alert and we were shooting our way out of an Empire ship, which is always going to be fun. We do make it back to the Trailblazer eventually, and with the gang all together we start our escape. Asara tries to warn the rebels that the Star Destroyer is here for them, but we were out of range and chose to go back to broadcast the signal. It was also here that we got an annoying glitch mid cutscene where it repeatedly got stuck doing this animation over and over. I had to restart about 4 times until it finally got past it. I have no clue how or why this happened. It doesn't make sense, it's a cutscene. Anyway, we eventually get to go into a space battle while Asara broadcasts the signal. We also decide to send a beacon out to all of the syndicates and friends that we have made. While we hold out for backup, we target the weak points on the cruiser to try and buy us some time. Surprisingly, it did not take long for backup to arrive, and Ankh also reveals that she has planted some explosives while waiting for us. Collectively, we had done enough to destroy the ship and we all get away safely. We then all go back to the Canto Bar to enjoy a drink as a gang, but they also all go their separate ways for a bit. Vale comes over to congratulate us, and not only do we make amends, but Kay also gives her Celero's databank. Then with that we pop the final trophy that we need, and of course we also finally get that elusive platinum trophy. This video is getting on a bit, so I will keep the review quite short and simple. I genuinely don't think the game is as bad as people are saying. Is it perfect and a masterpiece? No. Is it bad and boring? Also no. I just don't think it deserves the hate it's getting, but it is by no means perfect. I did enjoy this Star Wars journey personally, but I don't think it deserves anything more, if that makes sense. If you are interested and enjoyed this video, please do drop a like and comment on what games you would like to see. Also, if you want to follow our journey to 100 platinum trophies, then consider subscribing, as it really helps me out and it keeps you updated. Now I am off to sort out the puppy, and I will see you in the next one.
我很喜欢冰淇淋。